Hello, everybody. We are going to end the Halloween season off with the Dead Mall. So we've already seen the Silent Audience, and now we're going to finish it off strong with the Dead Mall. So without further ado, hopefully you guys enjoy the video, and let's get right on into it. It was called Sleepy Pines Mall, a few miles off an interstate in America's Northeast. At the center of several small towns, it was a single story and only had 2 anchor stores. But it was sprawling considering its almost rural location. Built in 1973, it was one of the older shopping malls, and opened before there were long-term strategies on mall visibility. Popular for a time, its occupancy dwindled in the late 90s, and it lost its movie theater and Sears by 2003 before becoming a neglected, poorly maintained, and sometimes dangerous commercial plaza that was outdone by nearby rivals, and doomed by surrounding negative growth trends of the towns that kept it fed. The food court closed in 2006, and the last store followed a year later. Sleepy Pines had its fans and grown adults who had gone there as children paying it nostalgic visits, as all malls do, but by 2010 it had become a mostly forgotten derelict with a parking lot full of weeds. 10 years later, a lengthy demolition was in its final stages. I had been assigned the foreman of the construction of the building that would replace it, a large warehouse and distribution center for a major retailer. I would frequently pay the site a visit as the walls were torn down and the roof was gutted. Myself having gone to the mall several times in my youth whenever my family was passing through the area, so I knew its layout well. By the winter of 2020, all that really remained of the structure was the back wall of the atrium, which once overlooked the fountain. A painted mural on tiles covered that wall. Efforts to save the artwork delayed its destruction several times, but enough funds were never procured to bring the wishes of perhaps only a few dozens to fruition. I'm no critic, but I always found it rather creepy. Anyway, European settlers amid a backdrop of pine trees, but the natives they drove out now instead depicted as their friends. Their faces were plain and simple, their eyes staring off into a space where there once was a skyline. On the other hand, the trees looked like they were made by a different painter, and one more talented. The pines were muted in their color, but highly detailed, with layers of darkness in their shadows where you might expect mischievous forest creatures to reside. The swirling, intricate patterns of a nearly black paint took the form of a deranged beast if looked at closely enough. But I think it was just the artist having fun, and not acting out with ill intent. It wasn't like the vast majority of shoppers would stand around and study the mural closely, not when there were sales to be found and warm pretzels to be had. Now the mural itself would be coming down soon, and ground on the next building would be broken after the spring thaw. What little demolition remained was also put on hold while the earth was still frozen. I went to the site a few days after New Year's to get my last look at the public painting. Exposed to the elements and surrounding by the landscape of snow, I checked in on the operations trailer while there, just to give my best wishes for 2021 to the guy in charge, who had gone to know over the years from various other projects. "Hey, you still like strange shit, right?" He asked me after a few minutes of us chatting on our holiday get-together. "Got something you love. My guys found it just before they left for the winter. I'm no good with electronics, so might as well see what you can do with it." He handed me a GoPro camera, an earlier model that I would later learn was from 2013. The little box was in bad condition, but I didn't take it into consideration how bad at first, and it was true. I did collect oddities and yard sale objects with inexplicable backstories in my spare time. It wasn't the camera itself that might rival some of my greatest finds, it was the potential of the footage on board it. If it survived, if it could explain how the poor thing had been beaten in such bad shape, then the story of the object would be made all the better. I had a long winter ahead of me with little else to do, so I figured I could spend a few nights cracking it open and seeing what was inside its memory card. "Jesus," I replied as I studied it in my hand. "It's like it melted." "Yeah, we dug it up and couldn't tell what it was at first. I have no idea if there was some kind of fire here, but it didn't seem like burn damage." He made a good point. There was no sign of smoke, no bubbles in the material, no metal fatigue. It was like something had turned it into clay and had its way with misshaping it into a twisted piece of art. The glass of its LCD screen and lens was intact, but the body was warped, stretched, and compressed as if by tiny fingers. If the memory card was still in one piece, I would never be able to pry it open. I'd have to carefully crack open the camera around it. Of course, I had a big collection of tools at home, so I knew I could do it. There was every chance that the card was missing, or corrupted, or the data had been deleted, but now I was interested. I wanted to find out for certain. I told my friend that we should have lunch sometime, and headed home. I was making good money, but I got to keep the house after the divorce, and had yet to get around to moving out and finding a better place. It was a small place, and half of it was spread across cardboard boxes or otherwise just a neglected mess. My home office was the only decent room remaining, and it also featured my tool bench and the arsenal I would use to disassemble the scarred and malformed lump that used to be a high-tech recording device. I managed to break it open and separate several of its pieces, and eventually the micro SD card fell out from its slot. It was perfectly readable and full of video files, which I transferred to my computer and organized by date. There were 23 in all, most over the course of 2 days on December 2013. With a cold, quiet winter outside my window, I turned up the heat, brewed my coffee, and went through the files. Knowing nothing about the camera's owner or what they experienced when I began, I will summarize the portions that are more mundane or uneventful, and fully transcribe the rest. File 1. Recorded on a chilly morning with the operator obviously testing the camera settings outside their house. No address can be seen, and the surroundings are typically suburbia, making the location difficult to identify. There is snow on the ground. It starts with the operator saying, "Nice," as they zoom out of their new camera's now empty box. They're inside their messy car, and they focus on the house for several seconds before the video ends. File 2. The file created it indicates that this one was recorded just a couple hours later. A young woman, around 30, is watching a pot boil on the stove. She's a small brunette with a bubbly attitude and big blue eyes. I quickly discern that this is the operator's girlfriend. They're both happy and energetic, like they had their whole lives ahead of them. Definitely not married, and they'd probably only been together a few months. I learn both of their names as the young man teases her a bit with the camera, and she remarks that she hopes he didn't spend too much time on the new toy. I'm not going to share their real names, so let's just call them Mike and Jenna. They clearly really liked each other, and the clip ends after he tells her, "This is a lot better than the old one. The mall videos are going to look great." Jenna stirs some stovetop sauce and smiles. File 3. Mike records some football in the yard at another house, even though the clip was made only a week after the previous. There was no snow present. In fact, everyone is running around in t-shirts, making it obvious that this was filmed much further south, away from cold weather. It's a Thanksgiving gathering, and Mike was filming his 3 younger cousins tossing around the old pigskin outside, trying his hand at some sporty action shots. It kept going for about 10 minutes, and friendly banter is shared among the family members. The cousin seems to like Mike, even as he keeps denying the request to join in. At the end, Jenna walks out to the front door and tells everyone that the meal is ready. File 4. Mike and Jenna visit a local mall in the area on Black Friday. It's large, with 2 floors, and doing well. The place is packed, and Mike gets a few minutes of the mall Santa and the line of kids waiting to see them. Jenna looks at the camera and smiles again. Mike comments that he hasn't been to a mall this busy in years. It definitely makes me nostalgic for the pre-pandemic days. File 5. Mike is seen on video for the first time at the mall. 10 minutes later, Jenna gets him some framing practice. Mike tries to humor her with grandiose gestures, like he's introducing the place to an adoring large audience. He says something about the mall, but the crowd drowns him out. The camera isn't really known for its audio recording quality. This lasts several minutes as Jenna gets used to the device and how to hold it steady. Towards the end, she recommends getting some sort of mount for it, which it was designed to be used with. Mike agrees. File 6. Things begin to get interesting. It's now December 15th, and Jenna's doing another camera test around sunset. Mike is seen crossing the frame several times as he moves about and she pans the camera. They're getting footage of the front of Sleepy Pines Mall, which had just recently closed. Snow covered the neglected parking lot. Mike tries the door and looks frustrated that it's locked. I hear the agitated version of his voice as he remarks that they should have come yesterday, now it's too late. Jenna assures him that there must be some way in, that someone had forgotten to lock one of the many doors. I understand now that they're urban explorers of some kind, though they likely just keep things easy and focus on malls. Judging by Mike's response about that not being a good idea, I figured that they hadn't broken into the place before. I rechecked the closure date of Sleepy Pines, which was December 14th. They had just missed their chance to legally or easily get inside and film a dead mall. Mike sounds ready to give up, mentioning how well their previous trip went to another mall in the region, and that they are never going to get their subscriber count up at this rate. Jenna isn't so despondent. She wants to make her guy happy, and she mentions that since it took an hour to get out of here, they should at least try to get in. Mike sighs, nods, and smiles. File 7. Shot a half hour later, and it's now dark. Jenna's holding the camera, getting a selfie of both of them. They're under a buzzing wall light somewhere on the side of the mall, near a cracked open service door. They both look pleased, but it's clear that they're still amateurs at the newest hobby they want to do together. "Hey guys, it's Mike and Jenna," she says with an awkward grin. So we're here at Sleepy Pine Malls, and we're going to explore it together. If you watched our first 5 videos, you know that we're both interested in this sort of thing. We're going to go in for a quick look tonight, and then come back tomorrow during the day. I bet it's really creepy in there right now. Alright, let's do it. Mike adds and sidesteps inside. He opens the door and beckons in the viewer, while Jenna snaps the camera into a shoulder mount. The service corridor is poorly lit, and the 2013 hardware doesn't have the sensor chip to shoot in darkness very well. Digital noise fills the frame as they navigate their way into the mall proper, stumbling over some equipment, boxes, and cleaning materials that had yet to be removed from the area. Commentary is nearly non-existent until they find another door and emerge into a side hallway that brings them to the atrium. Most of the mall's lights are still going, though the mural is bathed in shadow, giving its already creepy staring face an ominous presence in the nearly empty building. For several minutes, the couple of explorers walk around, getting footage of the vacant stores. They reach the other end of the mall and head back to where they began, saying very little as they collect footage. The clip ends with a 10-second hold of the mural, during which Mike can be heard laughing after Jenna's remark.
Yeah, that's a little scary.
File 8. The two definitely don't have a script, as they perform a longer second walkthrough. They chat idly about how they feel about the place and experiences from past visits to other malls. Just to fill dead air, Jenna is at least a competent cinematographer, even if her boyfriend leaves much to be desired in the information and anecdote side of things. If they weren't planning to add some interesting voiceover narration in post, they would have two very dull videos in their hands. It's around the 5-minute mark in this clip, while Jenna shows off the closed dollar theater, that Mike finally mentions some personal history. I learned that he used to live in the area as a kid, and has fond memories of visiting Sleepy Pines, back when I had busy weekends and few closed stores. Some of my earliest memories were of coming here with my dad when I was 5, he tells Jenna. So it must have been around 1991? I met Santa, right over there. He points to a wide open liminal space under a skylight in the center of the mall. It's sad what happens to these places. How their memories fade over time, you know? Is that why you were mad when you found out you missed its last day? Jenna asked, now keeping him in frame like they were having an interview. He shrugs. I paid a visit a year ago when I was already deep in the shitter. It would have just been symbolic or something. We're both here now, right? He pauses and looks away. You ready to go? We can get more footage tomorrow, during the day. We just have to keep that door from locking. Yeah, place is starting to get to me. Empty malls at night are unnatural. They turn around and head towards the hallway where they came in. On the way, Jenna suddenly stops and swings the camera around. She stares into a lightless corridor, so dark that the sensors can't pick up anything. A posted sign indicates that the mall security center is at the end of the hall. She lingers on it for an unusual amount of time, and Mike asks off-screen what she's looking at. Don't you hear that? She asks, nervousness in her voice. I turn up the volume as much as I can, but nothing strange passes through my headphones. If she's hearing something, the camera doesn't pick it up. She looks into that corner, as if more petrified by fright than curious. In the end, it takes Mike dragging her away to break her focus, at which point she seems to snap out of it. The clip ends with Mike staring at her and asking, "What's wrong?" If she gives him an answer, she does so when the camera's off. At this point, I get onto YouTube and search their name, adding mall into the search form on the second try, bringing me to their page. They really were getting their start. Their channel only had 6 subscribers, 5 videos, and only a dozen videos each, and no uploads for over 7 years. I skimmed through their videos, all visits to other malls, and find nothing out of the ordinary. Their most recent upload starts showing the signs of professionalism, with some of that voice-over narration they badly needed. Mike shares some history of the empty mall in another state they visited. He and Jenna smile throughout their trip and look like they're having a good time walking through a shopping plaza of memories. They were one of YouTubers' earlier dead mall channels, and they had some promise, but seeing their inactivity only all but confirmed my worries that something bad had happened to them. In a few minutes of Googling later, I found out that they had been reported missing in early January 2014, at least a full 2 weeks after they started working on their ill-fated video. Naturally, I get the urge to skip to the end to find out what may have happened to them, but I convince myself to keep going through the files in order to take this trip with them as their latest expedition's first viewer. On a second look at the last few minutes of this file, I noticed 2 pink pixels in random spots of the video. I know it's a sign of sensor damage, and I traced it back to when Jenna focused the camera into the dark hallway. After 30 seconds, one dead pixel showed up. A little later, the next arrives. It's as if there's something at the edge of the corridor that is emitting a damaging, invisible light or other energetic phenomena which steadily overloads the camera sensor. But I don't know what else could do such a thing, other than a powerful laser or radiation. Eagerly, I move on to the next clip. File 9. The dead pixels are here to stay. They're present throughout the video. I see Sleepy Pines' exterior again, this time early in the morning. Mike stands at the side entrance, his breath filling the cold air. He gives Jenna a thumbs up. She comes over and points the camera at both of them. "I'm Mike."
"And I'm Jenna."
Then they say in unison, And today we're exploring Sleepy Pines Mall. Cute. They proceed inside and arrive at the atrium without cutting the shot. Even when there's no reason to keep things all in one take, but Mike must have done some research while at whatever hotel the two stayed at the night prior. As he started going over the basic details of the mall, its opening date and designer, a brief history of the area, a few controversies about its construction and maintenance record, and the stores that had come and gone, all get a mention, though not in a scripted way. Mike had all this stuff memorized and jumped from one bullet point to the next. Still, I'll give some props to the guy for remembering so much and getting it all out in the first try. Did we get it that time? He asked when they returned to the atrium, where the fountain still hosts some coins and is half full of stagnant water. He smiles after Jenna quietly responds and adds, "Okay, keep that one." So, not actually their first try. I don't know how many attempts it took, since they must have kept deleting prior takes to keep memory space free. Before Jenna stops recording, Mike wanders around a little, looking into empty stores. Eventually, he suddenly notices that the red light remains on. "You still rolling?" "Mike, I think we should check out the security area." He sighs and looks a little annoyed. "You still care about that?" "Come on, we've just seen about everything else. We should get everything on film before they tear this place down, or there will be rooms that are, forgotten forever, never archived. We don't need to be perfectionists." "But you went on and on last night about visits here with your family and friends, your memories of the holiday decorations, and seeing dollar movies." "Really, Jenna? You're saying all this on camera? At least shut it off." The shot lingers a few moments longer before Mike looks fed up and starts approaching the camera. He's about to grab it when the clip ends. I guess every relationship has arguments, but it's a strange thing to have to fight about. It almost sounds like Jenna felt something was calling to her. File 10. Mike now stands in front of the dark hallway, although now with the sunlight coming in through the nearby skylight. Mike looks like he's under a bit of duress, but I understand, knowing myself that sometimes you have to do what your significant other wants. "Alright, so let's take a quick look down this hallway," he says, lacking his typical enthusiasm. "It'll be a place you'll probably only saw if you try to shoplift something or, filmed without permission like only criminal scum would do." "Mike!" Jenna exclaimed. He faked a smile and said, "Let's check it out." The camera has already acquired a third dead pixel before they even started moving into the hallway. More pop up as they get closer as the sensor becomes more and more permanently damaged. But with the camera on her shoulder and Mike leading the way, Jenna doesn't notice. It quickly becomes too dark for it to pick anything up again. But Mike turns on his phone's flashlight, which at the least helps it shows anything within its cone of light. They enter the security office and freeze for several seconds, an old desk and monitor station in frame. "What is that?" Mike asks. "Do you hear that?" "Yeah, some sort of electrical buzz," Jenna answers. "Weird, right?" "What the hell, Jenna? Why are we even checking this place out? One of us is going to get electrocuted. Can we please get out of..." Okay. I thought there would be more to see." She turns around to leave, but then looks back at Mike again after realizing he isn't moving. He's staring into a small room to the side. His light is on a sign that reads, "Lost and Found." Now, he's the only one that seems to be under the spell and just had to know what's beyond the next door. Without saying anything, he opens it and goes inside, and Jenna silently follows. What follows is difficult to describe. The video goes almost completely dark. For some reason, Jenna doesn't point the camera to whatever Mike is looking at until the end of this clip. His phone light is only seen at the very edge of the frame. They both examine what is evidently a strange object. "What is that thing?" Jenna asks. "No idea. Never seen anything like it." "Oh God, it's almost like it's moving." "Mike, don't!" "It's warm. How'd this get here?" "Stop touching that thing. It's dangerous." "There's no such thing as a cursed object, Jen. I think we should get this thing out into the light and get a better look at..." "Oh shit! What did you do?" "Mike, what's it doing?" "I don't know, I didn't..." They turn and run out of the room, but the camera still can't pick up anything they might be hearing. The two are frantic, and the video, what little there is to see, becomes a shaky mess. By now, scattered pink pixels partially cover the video, completely obscuring entire small segments of the frame. The two can be heard screaming in the last few seconds of the clip, which ends abruptly. With the darkness, I have no idea what kind of terror the two might have experienced. I would have thought they were already dead if this had been the last file on the card, or at best, someone else found the card and recorded more videos before they also mysteriously disappeared. Analyzing the clip frame by frame reveals two elements that had just barely got burned into the digital frame. As they turn to run, Mike's light sweeps over the strange object they came upon. It's some sort of totem, made out of unknown dark material and maybe about 3 feet high. It sits in the middle of the lost and found room on the floor, and is the only thing in the place at all. It's covered in carvings that form angular patterns, though I use the term loosely because there's no real patterns to the lines at all. They swirl and break off from one another in random, unappealing ways. It's like one of those AI-generated images that almost look like something familiar and identifiable, but there's never quite anything that really exists. Even so, it doesn't look entirely alien or forged by some forgotten tribe. It could have been someone's art piece, found at a garage sale many decades ago. Its history and origins now long obscure. But the strange totem wasn't the sight I found really frightening. I don't think Mike and Jenna saw them before his phone light suddenly cut off, leaving them in darkness. I can't confirm whether or not they are moving or just writhing in place, but on the walls of the security room is a spreading sea of long, solid black worms. I don't know how else to describe the things, but it's obvious in the few frames I get them that they're no trick of the light or other optical illusions. Worms. Molding over the wall like they're devouring it. After rewatching the entire clip several times, I close the video and try to wrap my hand around what I just saw. I almost dread finding out what happens next, and I delay myself from opening the next file by refilling my coffee. It's around midnight when I move on, to a recording made 3 hours after the last. File 11. I open the file with no expectations, and it right away defies explanation. While the smattering of dead pixels linger, it's as if the past trauma the couple just experienced isn't a thought in their minds. And at first, it's like they'd gone to another location and put on some new clothes, or rather, old clothes, because it looks like Mike pulled a wardrobe out of the late 80s and changed inside of a brightly lit dressed room, all in the span of a few hours. Mike stands smiling, though he has a nervous twitch. It's apparent in Jenna's camera work as well, because her shot now has a constant tremble. The device is also no longer mounted, judging by the shakiness of the video. "Hi guys," Mike says after taking a deep breath. "Well, you're never going to believe what happened to us if we got out of this." "We will," Jenna replies, though there's no confidence in her voice. Right. It'll be better if I just show you." He gestures to a mirror in the dressing room and Jenna walks up to it to show herself in the reflection. She now looks sharp in a bold red blazer and capri pants, and her hair is fancied styled up in a way that would take hours to achieve. But it's the camera itself that's even stranger. Holding it with two nervous hands, she brings it closer to the mirror, and it's no longer a GoPro. It's not even a digital device anymore. It's now somehow a classic Polaroid, one of those old instant cameras. "Yeah, weird, right?" Mike continues. "It doesn't have a screen on the back anymore, but it has buttons. And all of the on-screen information is inside the viewfinder. I don't know why or how, but our clothes changed too. It's like, I don't even know how to say it. Oh man, we're going to get millions of views, babe. We're going to be on talk shows, and scientists will want to... Mike, can we please get out of here? It's too confining." "Alright, yeah, let's keep showing them." The two leave the dressing room and step out into a fully lit packed Dillard's department store, just like the one Sleepy Pines used to have, but I hadn't seen one so busy in many years. And as Mike and Jenna kept pretty quiet and gave tours of the place, I steadily realized why it seemed so off. Like their clothes, those on all the shoppers and staff and those waiting to be worn on the racks and shelves, everything is dated. It's all fashioned from around 30 years ago. Mike at one point even grabs a polo shirt and, with a stupid smile on his face, brings its price tag right up to the camera, remarking about how it's so cheap. "Do you get it yet?" he asked the viewer. "I mean, it should be obvious what happened to us, right? We didn't believe it ourselves at first, but... Oh, sorry, man." He tells an older shopper he had bumped into, who only responds by turning around and giving Mike a curious look. "Come on, let's see them all. We haven't left this store yet. Needed some time to get over the shock first. I wish we had gotten some of that recorded." Jenna was crying, all hysterical. "Mike," she replies disdainfully, "you're taking this all way too lightly. How can you not be terrified of what's happening to us?" He frowns and admits, "A part of me is, babe, but we can't explore this place without being scared and worried. We can at least get all of it on record. in case something happens to us and the camera's all that's found. Don't say shit like that, Mike. None of this is normal. Hey, come on. I'm right here. I'm with you. We'll get out of this. Jenna begins to cry. The camera points down to the floor. Mike can be heard saying, "Let's talk," just before the clip ends. I go directly to the next one. File 12. It's a few minutes later. The camera is now pointed towards the main thoroughfare of Sleepy Pines, past the Dillard's entrance, during which dozens of shoppers walk by, many of them wordlessly glancing at the camera for a moment. Mike then walks into frame and guides Jenna out into the mall. Though her movements show she's still reluctant, I pull myself in my chair closer to my monitor and watch intently. I hear something familiar and nostalgia coming through my headphones. I turn on the noise cancelling so that I could feel even more engrossed about what I was experiencing. Mike doesn't even know what to say about the enormity of the situation as they approach their exit. I haven't given myself time to process the previous clip, or how the look of the store could have been pulled off through some elaborate set dressing. The obvious but incredible answer to all of this still hasn't yet to feel like a valid thought in my head. Mike isn't the only one startled when a large woman suddenly enters the frame. One second, it feels like they had been exploring the uncharted territory together, and the next, there's a big lady in a pantsuit threatening to spray him with a bottle of amber-colored perfume in a crystal bottle. "I told you, we don't need a sample, lady," Mike snaps at her. "Jesus." "Oh, but it's our new fall scent. There's nothing else like this on the market. Just one whiff. The two of you will fall in love all over again." She seems aggressive. She keeps trying to spray Jenna and Mike as they shove their way past her. For about a second, her unsettling toothy smile fills up the frame as the camera itself nearly smacks into her. "What the hell is her problem?" Jenna asks once they're in the safety of the mall. They could be like that. Mike sighs and looks up at the skylight. "Just maybe not as bad from what I remember. Crazy bitch. You okay? She didn't spray you, right?" "Michael, what is this place?" Jenna asks and points the camera at the ceiling, revealing the blue sky beyond the horizontal plane. The camera settles back on Mike, and for several seconds, he grins in a way that's almost as unsettling as the perfume lady's smile. I can hear the teeny, echoey music better as Jenna waits for her boyfriend to say something. It's genuine, traditional muzak, those light co-op retentions of pop music that went out of style years ago. That's barely heard anywhere anymore. Somehow, fittingly, as Mike grins like an idiot, Toto's Africa fills the air. Is it just me, or does Mike seem a little too happy about being stuck in there? It just seems a little weird that he's like overly cheerful, and it kind of scares me just a little bit because it feels like he might turn a little crazy or might want to stay there for a little bit. I don't know, just a weird kind of thing that you kind of observe with what he's doing right now, but regardless, let's keep going. "Are you really gonna make me say it?" Mike asks. "There has to be some other explanation. This can't be real." "Babe, we're in the past. We found some sort of traveling device. I'm telling you." He turns about and soaks in the mall, adding, "My guess, 1990, maybe 91. All those 1980 styles are on the way out. And everything is so colorful. I'm talking post-Cold War chic, Jen." "Then why did our clothes change? Why did the camera change? Where did our phones go? We need to make sure that there's a way out. Or a way to go back before we start having some fun. I don't want to be trapped here." "We're not here to have fun. We're here to make history. Maybe even be part of history. We're filming the past, babe. We'll document everything we see, and then we'll find that weird thing again and figure out how it can get us back to 2013. But we could stay a while, right? I mean, this decade is so much better than the one we came from, with all that social media shit and dumbass challenges." "I wish you wouldn't say that. Our friends and family are there, Michael. Our future together. We can't stay." Mike sighs. He doesn't want another argument. He wants to explore what he thinks is the past, some small piece of his own childhood. The shot lasts another few seconds on his impatient face before the camera pans down. I get a look at Jenna's shoes to see that they turn into a pair of red high tops. File 13. This clip goes on for over 10 minutes, and it's a proper mall tour. Jenna quietly films every store they pass without argument, while Mike tries to provide some commentary. But he's often distracted, overwhelmed by amazement every time he looks into a shop, or see a person walk by in nostalgic clothing, or find a treasure piece of media from the era. He forces Jenna to spend several minutes just in Sam Goody, so she can get every audio cassette, early CD, or videotape and at least a few frames of video. All the while, Mike is overly excited and Jenna seems wary of the crowd. The shoppers almost approach an uncanny valley. They look like regular people, but they act like emotional automatons, staring vapidly at the two like they're intruders in their home. She notices them, as do I. But Mike hardly seems to consider whether or not something is off with everyone other than himself and his girlfriend. He's under the effects of a siren call brought about by his love for a romanticized past. They pass by a brightly lit hair salon with colorful geometric shapes on the wall and a checkerboard floor. The three women seated inside are getting the exact same hairstyle. The small movie theater's marquees list as now playing Total Recall, Gremlin 2, Terminator 2, City Slickers, The Rocketeer, and ironically, Back to the Future Part 3. We see more mall store staples, many of which no longer exist anymore. A KB Toys, a Walden Books, a merry-go-round filled with clothes for teenagers. I recognize most of the places, and sure, I miss seeing them if I think about it. But they all had their time, and I don't worship the past like Mike seems to. While it's certainly interesting to see all those old stores in modern high definition, dead pixels aside, I find myself just hoping the two make it out. Sleepy Pines looks very different overall. It has big blue, red, and yellow painted lines running along its walls. Neon lights cast their glow in indoor trees and lounge areas full of boxy chairs and couches. Coin-operated rides sit out in front of the arcade, for the kids too young to venture in and play the cabinets that bright and noisy pixelated games inhabit. I can empathize with Mike. Being a kid during this snapshot in time, wanting to go back and feel something genuine again if he believes the present is shallow and hopeless, but that idealism isn't going to find either of these young adults a way out. All the while, the calm cheerfulness of the mall music undercuts the rising dread I begin to feel about the situation I'm helpless to change. Wow, Mike says wistfully as they reach the Sears at the other end of the mall. It's great, Jen. What an experience. You got all that, right? Yes. Now can we go back to the Lost and Found? We need to get that thing to send us back home. I wonder if the younger me will show up if we wait around, babe. I don't think you appreciate all of this enough. How often do you get to take your girlfriend to the freaking past and show them someplace that meant so much to you? After waiting for a response from her that doesn't come, he sighs, nods, and says, "Alright, fine. Let's get a good shot of the mural on the way back." They head to the mall atrium, where Jenna lets the mural fill the frame. It's incomplete, and even creepier for it. 2/3 of the forest segment is done, but the 5 figures standing in front of it have yet to be painted, and are just a solid ghostly white. I didn't know that the whole thing wasn't finished all at once. It suggests that there may be something to my idea that the poorly drawn pioneers and natives were added by a second artist. Even just an excuse to cover something up on the original background. That's weird as hell. Mike says as he looks at the artwork. We must have been brought back to one of the few days when the mural was still being made. Jenna grumbles and starts to pressure him to focus on getting themselves home, but is interrupted when mall security comes over and reminds the pair that they can't just shoot pictures in the mall without permission, unaware that their mutated camera is actually filming videos. Sure, no problem, Mike is heard saying after the camera goes to Jenna's side and is pointed at the floor. Hey, can we check your Lost and Found? We think we left something behind when we last. The clip ends, as abruptly as I come to expect. File 14. The next file was created 4 hours later. I'm seriously concerned about what might have happened in that time in between before I opened it. Mike and Jenna are staring at the camera together. They're back in one of the Dillard's changing rooms, where they might feel safe. The lights flicker above them, and now they both look noticeably stressed. Hey guys. Mike tries to find the words and wrap an arm around Jenna's shoulder. So here's the part where we have to tell you that things aren't looking good for us. I still don't know how or why we're here in the past, and we can't find the thing that brought us here. We've looked all over, every store, every back room, every staff room you can think of, and it feels weird trying to sneak around, you know? The people here are always looking at us, and I don't think any of them have left either. They're all the same shoppers that were here when we arrived. Something is wrong with this place. I should have seen it earlier, but I was busy being too stupid about everything. The doors out are all locked, Jenna adds tearfully as she seems to come to terms with their situation. We've tried all of them, and they won't budge. We picked up one of the payphones, but there's not even a dial tone. We're gonna tear this place apart if we have to. We'll find that thing, whatever it is. But just in case we don't make it out, and you find these videos, please call my parents. Their home number is... Mike, shh! Jenna suddenly shushes him. She points towards the edge of the frame, and Mike turns the camera around to show the gap in the bottom of the changing room door. After several seconds, a pair of large feet stuffed into high heels step into the space. They turn towards the door, and it rattles violently. Jenna can be heard suppressing a scream. The door keeps shaking for about a full minute, before the assault on it finally ends. Without saying a thing, the large woman on the other side walks off. As upset as she is, Jenna picks up the camera again, nearly dropping it as she films Mike cracking open the door and looking around. He gestures for her to come out, and they make an exit from the store by sneaking behind clothes racks and keeping quiet. The other shoppers look at them again, but don't bother them. Just before they can leave, Mike gets a shot of the perfume lady standing near the store entrance. I recognize the shoes and realize that she must have been stalking the pair at this point. Without warning, she turns towards them, and they duck behind a small table full of polo shirts. I pause on the frame of her face and see how hideous she has become. Her bulbous face is covered in bright red lipstick, sky blue eyeshadow, and bright pink blush. But it all does nothing to help with the fact that she has greasy, disheveled hair and yellow crooked teeth. After a few seconds, the camera pops back up. The perfume lady is gone.
Where is she?
Jenna whispers. I don't know. We just have to get out of the store. We never should have came back in here. We knew the door would be locked, just like the others.
Mike, we have to...
Jenna's cut off by the sound of ruffling fabric. She and Mike both flip around to see the perfume lady standing right at them from the top of the clothes rack. She's slumped over some of the chrome bars, her bob-like arms dangling down like she's an obese sloth with a murderous glint in its eyes. She curls her lips into a demented grin and holds up the perfume bottle seemingly glued to one of her hands. Mike and Jenna quickly work up the nerve to get on their feet and make a run for the store entrance. Judging by the sound coming from behind them, the pursuer knocks over an entire rack and crashes into more displays as she gives chase. There are expletives, terror, and panic in Jenna's voice as she and Mike dash out towards the mall. She briefly turns the camera back to capture the crazed lady on film. She's become animalistic, running on all fours with eyes as black as a shark's. Jenna lets out a shriek as the feral beast gains on them, but the perfume lady stops right at the boundary of the store, as if there's an invisible barrier she can't pass. After catching his breath, Mike flips her off, and the woman simply regains her composure, getting back on two legs and returning to the cosmetic department. That grin never leaves her face.
What the hell, Mike? She's not human. No person acts like that,
Jenna shouts at him.
We need to get out of this place, right goddamn now.
I know, Jen, I know. At least she can't leave the store.
Shit!
Mike tries to calm himself down as the shoppers stare at him. Most of them now just standing around as if they're NPCs who had run out of walk cycles. He points the camera up at the skylight, revealing that it's dusk. The neon lights of the mall now determine the colors, splashing everything in hues of red, purples, pinks, and blues. I can also hear that the Muzak has slowed down and become distorted, like a talking electronic toy with low batteries. The audio seems to unnerve Mike, who closes his eyes to think, but can't get comfortable enough to do so. It's like this place is starting to fall apart. He muttered out the same thought that had just crossed my mind. Jen, we need to find something heavy. Hammers, crowbars, maybe just a trash can. We'll smash our way out. He proceeds to shove his way past the crowd of zombie-like onlookers, yelling at them to get out of the way, all the while Jenna follows at a distance, getting a face full of their staring eyes on the way. They briefly stop near a display of a red 1990 Corvette, where a nearby small film crew seems to be trying to make a commercial. Hot lamps hit the sweating face of an older man in a gray suit. He repeats the line, "A lot happens at Sleepy Pine Mall. Why not come see what's new today?" Several times as Jenna also films the scene, Mike then loses his patience and enters the shot, but the attempt of making a commercial continues. "You've been here for hours," Mike tells the crew angrily. "Who are you people? How'd you get in here? What ad agency do you work for?"
"Michael, stop!"
Jenna quietly pleads. "Don't antagonize them. They're not even real. They're mindless, running on some sort of script." With no concern for consequences, Mike knocks over the lights and the expensive film camera, and then steals the tripod. Jenna doesn't know what to make of it, and she just stands in place in shock as Mike walks away with a bulky piece of equipment. And actually, Mike seems to have a point, because the actor simply keeps repeating the same segment of the commercial several more times with the crew watching and going through the motions. The camera pans down to the floor, and the clip ends. Okay. Ooh, this one's short. File 15. It starts with Mike midway through another swing of the tripod against a glass door. He's been at it for a while, based on his apparent exhaustion. He lands the heavy metallic tripod plate against the glass several times, but he has yet to crack it. The glass doesn't even seem to have any give to it. He might as well be hitting a brick wall. The vintage cars and trucks in the parking lot outside seem real, but I'm not sure. There are no people outside in the darkness, yet the couple are trapped in the mall with hundreds of them, so everything beyond its walls may not even have a reason to exist. Whatever time travel trickery is going on, it likely can't extend past the building in which it was triggered. Jenna can be heard quietly sobbing. She pans to a trash can on the floor. Knocked over, she gives it a kick, giving me the impression that she had used it to join in the efforts before she gave up and started filming again. I also noticed that the muzak is now completely gone, replaced by a monotone buzzing sound. Mike hits the door 12 times in all, working up a sweat and eventually hopelessly collapsing to the floor. The recording of his effort then ends. File 16. The camera sits on a table in the food court. It's getting late, but it looks like all the places are still open. The pair have cups of soda and slices of pizza on paper plates in front of them, but they both look hesitant to eat. It isn't that they're only losing hope of escape. They're also afraid of the food. I can't blame them. They're also mostly in shadow, now lit only by the neon lights. Of a neon moon, and if you lose your one... Okay, never mind. Are we really gonna eat this? Mike asked listlessly. I mean, who knows what it's made of? Jenna murmurs back. We have to eat something. We're starving. Mike looks into the camera and says tiredly, yeah, so... The clock around here says it's 2 in the morning, and things just keep on going. It's a 24/7 mall now, I guess. We couldn't last much longer without eating or drinking something. If this is what ends us, at least you know it wasn't the perfume lady. It's one of the few acts of bravery I've seen Mike exhibit across the videos. He takes a sip from the cup before Jenna, slowly at first, begins gulping it down thirstily. She then does the same with her drink, and they soon look a little more confident about trying something solid next. Well, it tastes like Dr. Pepper, Mike says and examines his pizza. And it looks authentic enough, even though I don't think much of anything is real in this place. Okay, before it gets cold. He takes a bite, chews, and eventually swallows. Deciding it tastes edible enough and it's worth the risk, he quickly gobbles up the rest, while Jenna remains more reluctant and takes her time with her food.
It's too dark in here, she says, looking around. All the ceiling lights shut off hours ago, but the people didn't seem to notice.
We'll try to get some sleep in the arcade, Mike tells her. All the games are still running. I think that's the most light we'll get.
What's gonna happen to this place?
Maybe, eventually, the dream ends and we wake up.
Even the guy at the Sbarro didn't speak or ask us for any money.
Yeah, Mike then deadpans a joke. No wonder the chain is dying off. They sit, drink, and eat quietly for another minute before the video ends. File 17. This one takes place entirely inside the mall's old arcade, which closed in 1998. The only source of light are the flickering cabinet screens of games on their demonstration modes, but there are so many that the place remains the brightest locale in the mall at this point. Mike holds the camera this time, but I don't know what he's trying to achieve, other than the miserable conditions the two have found themselves in. He makes a few rounds around the arcade cabinets, muttering incoherently to himself. Kids and teenagers fill the large room with a carpet featuring planets and stars, but none of them move. Some have their hands on joysticks or buttons, others just stand and stare with arms at their side. Mike tries to elicit a response from one of the kids, getting the lens right up to their face. Their eyes are glazed over, looking straight ahead as the light of the fighting game reflects off their large pupils. They're just as catatonic as everyone else. Mike throws a swear at him before going over to the prize counter and getting a shot of all the toys he'll never be able to claim. I went to a good university, he tells his audience of one and turns the camera on himself so he can speak angrily directly into it. I had a good job lined up, and I like the 1980s, the 90s, so what? Doesn't mean I want to be stuck in some shitty bizarro version of nostalgia. I never want to visit a mall again. The camera battery, it should have died a long time ago, but the icon says it's still full. Nothing is right. It's all wrong. We're never getting out of here. Still filming, he goes over to one of those large cabinets that you can sit down inside for some privacy and immersion. It's an old racing game with a steering wheel, and Jenna is curled up on the seat, facing the wall, sleeping or trying to. As this file was created 5 hours after the previous, I get the feeling that Mike couldn't sleep, or gave up trying. He decides to let Jenna be and slumps down onto the carpet. Several cabinet screens are in frame, the kids in front of them, now lifeless silhouettes. Mike can be heard getting emotional for a few minutes, over the noise of the games. Suddenly, he hears a large metal clang outside, echoing down the mall's corridor. He jolts up and points the camera at the darkness outside that only the neon lights can penetrate. His breathing is shallow and rapid. Nothing shows up, at least that he can see, but he still ends up running into a small utility closet. Without alerting his girlfriend to a possible danger, and closes the door. Following another few seconds of pure black images filled with digital noises and dead pixels, the video ends. I assume he eventually fell asleep in that cramped space, and that the experience was beginning to wear on his sanity by this point. File 18. The camera's aimed up at one of the skylights, where early morning light is coming through. It's possibly about 8 o'clock a.m. or so, meaning Mike and Jenna are nearing 24 hours spent in the mall. Mike pans down to show the mural and the fountain in front of it, where Jenna scoops up a handful of water and washes her face. Around her are the mindless shoppers, all of them still idle, despite the fact that the place seems to have never opened or closed. This version of Sleepy Pines, whether it really existed in the past or not, just is. I never come to realize that it represents the memory of a mall, when people are there to remember it. Times where it is empty and dormant doesn't factor into this corrupt amalgam of the golden days of service. The speakers are still pushing out some sort of noise, but now all I can hear are tonal crackles. Mike approaches Jenna, leaning forward and staring at her reflection in the fountain. She looks at him as he draws near, now looking incapable of ever smiling again. I still worry about Mike's mental state, but she doesn't seem afraid of him. She's just tired. We're starting to resign herself to their imprisonment. Jen, are you hungry? Mike asks flatly. The Cinnabon still seems to be running. I could get you something. She shakes her head and replies,
Mike, we need to find a way out today. Whatever it takes. We can't give up. We just can't.
I know. We'll try something. I was thinking maybe the air vents. Jenna looks like she's about to say something, but instead goes back into looking into the fountain. After several seconds, she takes on an inquisitive expression and leans forward. She stays in frame, but I get the impression that Mike's actually looking elsewhere while the camera remains pointed at her. Jenna takes out one of the coins from the fountain and studies it. I can barely hear her murmur, Michael, look at this. Mike doesn't hear her and shouts, Jen, run! The camera swings around, and I see the perfume lady aggressively approaching at a fast and unstoppable walking pace. The Dillard's far behind her. It's the first time we've seen her leave the invisible boundary of the department store, and Mike and Jenna seem shocked about this as well. The large woman still has a perfume bottle in one hand, but there's no telling what she really wants. Not ready to find out, the couple start running. File 19. An hour after the previous video ended, Jenna gets the camera going again to show Mike crouching down between some washing machines and peeking around the corner of one of the big white cubes. They're somewhere in the Sears store. I think we finally lost her. Mike sighs and slumps down against the machine. Crazy bitch. Why is she the only one still moving around? He shakes his head and looks up to see that the camera's recording.
Mike,
she says quietly.
There may be a way out, or something.
He grumbles back.
What are you talking about? Don't get your hopes up, but I found out. Here, just look.
She hands him a quarter, and he checks both sides of it. He looks at Jenna like she's crazy at first, but then realizes why she sees it as important. It's got state art on the tail side. That doesn't start until 2000.
Yeah, it's from 2005. I don't think the coins and the fountains were affected by any of this. Something to do with the water, maybe?
That doesn't make any sense.
None of this does, but maybe there's something we can do with water. Whatever took us to this bizarre version of the past, maybe water's the answer. A way out.
So, what? Should we jump into the fountain, hold our breath, and hope for the best? Or do you want to open up all the faucets in the mall and flood it? How does this big revelation help us?
We have to keep trying, Michael. We need to talk. We need to understand what happened to us, and what this place really is, and why we're here. I don't think we're really in the past. Didn't you notice how early it got dark yesterday? There aren't any holiday decorations here, and all the fake people are dressed like it's summer. But the day didn't last any longer than it did before.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
I think that device somehow recreated local history by altering all the nearby material. But it isn't perfect, and it can't sustain it for long. It's not stable. It's all breaking down, and we're running out of time. That's insane. Have any better theories? Do you think we actually went to the past?
Mike takes a rather vapid expression as he thinks for a few moments, before replying, Then what's the deal with the perfume lady?
I don't know. Maybe she's guarding the place? Maybe she's the thing keeping us here? She's hunting us. She's a threat. So I say, let's just try to kill her.
How? He asked, and rather stupidly in my opinion. No shit.
We could start by trying. Why don't we bash her over the head and see what happens? She's not real, Mike. None of those people are real. Alright? Yeah, fine. We'll smash her head in and see what comes out. He tries to act tough for his girlfriend, but he can't back it up. After he agrees to commit some form of homicide, the two hear a noise, and he panics just as much as she does when they see the silhouette of the perfume lady against the light of the Sears exit to the parking lot. I'm not sure whether she was just standing there looking menacing or started chasing them again. The clip ends just as the couple start running. File 20. With only 4 files left to view, I know that Mike and Jenna's journey is coming to an end. This one opens with Mike holding the camera at himself, and behind him are boxes of shoes. He's at the Payless or a Foot Locker. He has his free arm wrapped around the camera tripod from earlier, which rests against his shoulders. He must consider it the best weapon he could find. We think it's been over 24 hours since all this started, he tells me. We're prepared to take on that perfume bitch now, mentally and physically, but we don't know where she's at the moment. But you gotta see this. He gets up and goes to the store entrance, where Jenna is standing guard and looking into the hall. She's holding a metal bar in one hand, I think taken from the clothes rack, and a fire extinguisher in the other.
Look at them,
she murmurs.
They're getting worse.
Mike gets a little closer to one of the nearby kids, but still keeps a safe distance. Thick black ooze, moving as slowly as hot tar, is dripping out of the boy's mouth. Smaller streams of the stuff coming out of his lifeless eyes. Mike pulls back and pans the camera to reveal that the surrounding adults are suffering from the same afflictions. Still, they all do nothing but stand quietly. Jenna walks into the frame and says,
"This is what I'm talking about, Mike. This place is falling apart. First, it'll be the more complex things, like the people. Then the rest of it will follow. The whole building.
But not us, right?" Jenna doesn't have an answer, but there is doubt in her eyes. They move away from the store, Jenna ready to strike with her crowbar. Everyone they pass is disintegrating from the inside out, but none of them act aggressively or move in the slightest. Mike points the camera up to the skylights, where a miasma of black specks is rising and beginning to smother sunlight. As he pans back down, he catches on film one of the shoppers losing their arm. It simply breaks off and falls into the floor, where it slowly melts into a pool of black liquid. At this point, they're out of expletives and just accept it. Even the movie theater's marquee had been corrupted, or is glitching like a crashing computer program. The only 2 legible titles are Casablanca and Gone Girl, neither of which come out anywhere near the supposed emulated time period in which the 2 are trapped. The other spots on the marquee are jumbles of letters and numbers, and a pile of them is building up on the floor by the box office. Mike turns away and focuses on the fountain they're closing in on. The mural behind it has lost all its elements and is now a solid black. Jenna runs over to the water and looks down into it. She dips a hand and then steps in fully, submerging herself to just below her knees. "You really expecting something to happen?" Mike asks as he catches up. "You're just gonna get soaked. Might be hard to run in wet, squishy shoes, Jen."
"Maybe we won't have to run anymore if this is our way out."
She looks down at her feet and mutters,
"Come on, do something."
"What are you hoping will happen?"
"I don't know. Maybe for my shoes to change back?"
Mike gazes into the fountain, bringing the camera closer to its surface. He notices the coins and takes one out to look at the year it was minted. "You were right," he admits. "You've been putting more thought into all of this than I have. I guess anything's worth a shot at this point." He points the camera straight up for about a full minute, leaving a bit of his hair into the frame as the clouds of dark particles thicken above. After he has some time to think his deep thoughts, he swings it back down and gets a shot of Jenna's shoes again. They're still red high tops, and she expresses her disappointment with apparent anguish. I don't know how long she stayed in the fountain, since the video ends a moment later, with Mike trying to be considerate and offering assuring words. File 21. Over 2 hours later, Mike gives me a shot of the skyline again. Only now, the dark particles are burning away, into a thick mist that almost fully obscures the sunlight. It moves like boiling water, forming a wriggling cloud all across the top half of Sleepy Pines. The writhing mass reminds me of the worms crawling on the walls from earlier, but it gets worse. The camera sweeps down to the walls of the atrium, where large tiles are breaking loose as more black ooze pours out and spreads across the floor. Jenna walks towards the camera, trying hard not to step in the gunk. She stares at Mike for several seconds, and then keeps walking past him. "Place has gone to hell," he mutters into the microphone. He then asks Jenna, "Are we doing another walk?" Nothing's changing with the doors. The people in the stores are almost gone, but the doors are still solid, Jen.
"If everything is burning or melting, then a way has to emerge."
"Yeah, maybe, but we've been going back and forth for a few hours."
"I'm going to the food court to see if there's anything left."
"Not sure that's a good idea." He follows her anyway, and they cross through a hallway that looks more like a moving, dripping cave system of black magma than anything human hands made. I think it's all being reclaimed by the device that projected a version of the mall that emulates its past.
but one that never really existed. They make it to the food court. Now nearly pitch black as its primary light source, sunlight, has been all but completely blotted out. The food is darker still. The sub sandwiches, Chinese noodles and rice, and Zabaro's pasta and pizza have lost their color and form as they also turn into slag.
There's nothing left, Jenna sighs. God damn it, I'm so hungry.
I just hope that, what we ate before passes through us enough that we don't have any of this nasty stuff inside us. The two look down at one of the shoppers' head on the floor, separated from its body and still staring ahead mindlessly in a pool of its own gunk. They don't remark on it. It really must be common sight by now.
Mike?
Jenna says, while the camera's pointed at the floor.
What is it?
That kid.
You gotta be shitting me. What about him?
Mike walks off, only bringing the camera back up when he's a few feet away from the young boy, 5 or 6 years old. His gooey insides are still intact, for now, and he looks blankly into space like all the others. I put the pieces together on why Mike suddenly sounds so upset just before he confirms it.
Jen, that's me. Why am I here? Why?
She comes over to get a look at young Michael, and then tries to comfort the adult one as he keeps the camera on the kid's eyes.
It doesn't mean anything, she tells him. How can you say that? Whatever created this place it pulled from a pool of faces. Maybe full of everyone who ever came here. But that could be over 1 million people. Why did I just now find the young me? Where was he? How does whatever this is knows who I am? This is all so screwed up. It's messing with us. You know we're never gonna get an answer. Let's just go back to looking for a door. Or maybe focus on staying safe until a path opens for us.
Mike takes a deep breath and turns the camera back around to show the two of them again, both clearly exhausted. He works up the confidence to say, the next time we turn this thing on, we'll be filming our escape, or are already back in our hotel room. I'm sick of this place. I think we'll be taking our channel in a different direction after this. They both lock eyes and share a brief kiss before the video ends. File 22. Unfortunately, Mike lied, creating another 2 hours later. This one starts with another shot of the skylights and part of the wall right beneath them. But now, finally, it seems things are reverting. The thick fog of particles had disappeared, and there's a few feet worth of the more recent, aged atrium walls beneath the ceiling, windows, and the black goop, which is no longer actively moving. Instead, the material is now like a dried, flaking crust. A few chunks break off of the mass and turn into dust on the way down. It's as if the 2013 version of the mall is emerging from a cocoon. Hey, it's us again. Hopefully for the last time, Mike says, and gets both of them back in frame. Their eyes are half closed, and they look ready to sleep for a week. Well, we still couldn't find a way out, but it's starting to look like we just have to keep waiting a little longer. Sleepy Pines is returning to normal. Very slowly, Jen adds. Yeah, look at this. In a sweeping 360-degree shot, he shows off the atrium and the 3 main hallways. It's all coated black, including the floor, turning the place into a demented Dali painting. It absorbs all the color and most of the lights, but there's enough sheen to the crusty darkness to make out its melted wax shapes and textures. The two stand to avoid sitting on the stuff, since all the chairs and couches are also gunkified. Even the fountain has been affected, and it's now just a solid black basin that still holds its water. All the people are gone, melted into the floor. Mike sighs. The, fragrance fiend has been MIA for a while now, so I think we scared her off. Or something. And it's all coming to an end. I begin to feel some relief myself, after having an elevated heartbeat for nearly an hour from the safety of my office chair. I start hoping again that they made it out, but just drop the camera on the way. I look at the little thing in my desk, my mind still trying to process the idea that it had been twisted into a very different size, shape, and model before being twisted right back again. Mike goes on to say, we still don't know what happened to our phones, so hopefully we'll be able to flag down a car, get some food, get back to our hotel room, close the curtains, sleep. Sound good, Jen? Jen? He looks over to see her staring down at her shoes, which he quickly gets into frame. They've changed back into a modern pair of sneakers.
Mike, it worked,
Jenna murmurs. Yeah, I guess. It just took a long time. Do you feel anything?
My feet tingled for a second, and then I looked down and...
She stops suddenly as a loud, thundering crack echoes throughout the atrium.
The hell was that?
Mike exclaims and swings the camera all the way around to show a large segment of the melted black wall near the KB store breaking apart. Jen, I think it's speeding up. We might be able to get out in just a few minutes.
Oh, thank God.
She breathes out. The walls crack again, and then a torrent of ooze which never dried comes pouring out. Mike takes a step back, The three of us watch in dread as the inky arms emerge from the opening, its claw-covered hands grasping to the side to tear open the rest of the chrysalis. Like a grotesque insect emerging from inside, 4 more arms spring out and quickly rip apart the shell. A deformed, hulking dark mass over 7 feet tall lurches forward, its 4 legs and 9 arms wriggling about as if they're trying to free themselves from the true owner of the body. The disgusting and horrifying chimera has 5 mouths, at least that I can see, but only a single eyeball manages to protrude from the drippy fleshy shadow. Multiple voices, all of them dissonant and guttural, manage to gurgle out. Did I make a guttural sound? Let's pause this. Write our new land. God, that's fucking hard. What the fuck?
Jesus Christ!
I can't really yell that out at this time. That's the best you're getting. Mike yells out and grabs for the tripod, resting against one of the lounge chairs. Before he can grasp it, the monstrous creature emits a loud buzzing sound. The camera picks it up this time. For Mike and Jenna, it's so painful and deafening that they had to cover their ears. In doing so, Mike ends up flinging the camera away. It lands at an angle in the melted floor, with the dried ooze covered a part of its lens. The moment the shrieking begins is also when more dead pixels start to appear, much faster than when it happened previously. Every 2 or 3 seconds that pass, another one pops up. I'm still able to see enough of the scene that follows to discern what happened next. Though in pain, the couple manage to get their weapons, and as the creature stumbles into the frame, Mike hits its body and multiple arms with his tripod several times with as much force as he can muster. Jenna jams her metal bar into its body, but it gets lodged into the mass and starts sinking into it. When she realizes she can't pull it out, she begins spraying the creature with foam from the fire extinguisher. It seems to slow it down, but that isn't enough for either of them. They know they need to destroy it, or at least try to. Its body covered in foam and maybe blinded by it, Jenna shoves the entire red canister into one of its mouths. Mike bashes the extinguisher in deeper with the tripod, and the handle audibly gets squeezed within its maw. More foam is dispensed directly down its gullet, paralyzing the abomination. Jenna grabs Mike's hand and gestures toward the fountain. I guess seeing it as their best option, though I lack the information to know exactly what they expected it to do for them. Even so, they ran off into the background of the shot and visibly jumped into the water. They don't emerge before the video ends. In the last 10 seconds after the foam stops pouring out of the creature's mouth, it collapses to the ground, where it starts crawling towards the fountain, screeching and sprouting more arms as it does so. With over half of the video's pixels either dead or showing nothing but the blackness the lens is sinking into, the clip finally ends on its own, likely because the camera is too badly damaged to continue recording. File 23. I want a conclusion, but I should have expected I wouldn't get one. My PC never generated a thumbnail for this final file, so I knew in advance that there would be something wrong with it. The warning about it being damaged doesn't deter me from trying alternating ways to see inside it. The file size is over 25 megabytes, so there has to be something within its bits. Eventually, after trying several file restorations and video editing programs, I managed to extract some information. It's 9 seconds long, though that means little when everything about the file is corrupted to begin with. The audio is nothing but a loud buzz similar to what the creature let out, and nearly every frame of video is just a mess of the jumbled green and blacks of more unreadable data. Even so, I want to say I did everything possible, so I could go through the video frame by frame, all 60 of them for each second. Only 2 frames, one 5 seconds in and the other just near the end, survived and are decipherable, despite still having a flood of pink dead pixels. The first is a single frame still of Sleepy Pines during the day, looking normal with a few shoppers walking about. Many of the stores are closed or empty, but the arcade is still open, placing this image sometime before 1998, but after the events across the rest of the file. The other one takes me back to where it all began, showing the totem in the lost and found room, blurred by camera motion. It's a duplicate frame from file 10. The remaining several hundred frames remain corrupt, and the date created for number 23 defaults to the Unix time of January 1st, 1970. I don't think the last file was created by pressing the record button. My guess is that it was generated via hardware error, possibly while the camera was reverted back to its natural form. But that doesn't explain where it could have pulled that picture from the mall in decline, taken years later. I stay another hour into the night, researching anything I can about the mall, or Mike and Jenna. I find the commercial we saw being shot by the Corvette on YouTube. I almost believed I might see the couple walking about in the background, but I go through the retro 30-second spot for the mall several times, and none of the featured smiling shoppers look anything like them. Even so, seeing all the area-appropriate clothes and the appearance of the mall makes me appreciate just how accurately the strange, unknown, and missing device managed to recreate the place from the past. And then, At 4 in the morning, as I'm starting to crash, something cast doubt on the genuineness of everything I just saw. Although Mike never posted about it on what little social media presence he had, I found out through another student's Facebook post from Mike's university days that he attended several special effects class in his junior and senior year. I go to bed thinking about what this might mean, and how it really could have been just an elaborate underground art project. Maybe Mike had melted several cameras and placed them about in abandoned malls to attract attention to himself, or become the star of some new urban legend. He and Jenna could very well be missing on their own accord, just to make it all appear authentic. Even with those doubts, I go through the file several more times across the following days, looking for any giveaway that everything was faked. Albeit very well, but I'm not very good at spotting the tricks he could have used, or seeing the imperfections of any elements you'd need a computer to render. I have lunch with the buddy who gave me the camera a week later and tell him all about it. We end up having a laugh, and he gets me out of a rut that resulted in my viewing experience by telling me that he was almost certain it was all faked, because it just sounds too Hollywood horror to be true. In a few years, Mike, and maybe Jenna as well, would surely emerge as modern artistic visionaries, and everyone that had found a copy of their videos would have something worth a small fortune in their hands. But despite saying all of that, as we head out of the restaurant, he does mention two final little details. The camera, it turns out, was found somehow embedded inside one of the mall floor tiles. Oh, and one more thing. Early in the demolition, his crew found a metal bucket in one of the food court kitchens with several unexplainable bite marks around the edges. Like, someone with a strong pair of chompers must have snacked on it. He gets quiet for a moment after revealing these findings, but then grins and adds, maybe those two kids were just that good. Maybe. But I can't bury the past of me that believes everything I saw, and know deep down that what happened to Mike and Jenna is in fact a mystery. While I'm still in the area, I drive to what remains of Sleepy Pines one last time, and on this visit, I get a really good look at the mural. Coming up close to it, but my mind fixates on what might have transpired on the now barren grounds. I try to remember what it was like when I was younger, back when I first visited the mall and had studied the intricate swirls, finding secret critters among the dark forest. At first, I think they're all still there, just waiting to be broken apart and tossed into a landfill. I find that the elegant brushstrokes of the nighttime woods suddenly end and are not present in the last third of the mural on the left side, where it was still blank and incomplete in Mike and Jenna's videos. The paint is still there, as are the trees and dark colors of the ominous forest. But the subtle texture only the touch of human hands can create had been replaced by something mechanical. What was changed and then changed back is now an unfeeling reproduction that can never get right the true authenticity of real historical art, made by someone who cared. And so we reached the end of the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the narration. It took a little bit of work to do the voice and stuff like that, but I think it turned out pretty well. But yeah, that will be the end of any stories that I'm doing for the end of Halloween. In terms of any that I'm doing in the future, maybe for next Halloween I'll do some more stories. And this one does have like a sequel and a prequel, so maybe I'll read them in the future. Just depends on how much people want to see that. But for now, it's just going to be these until, you know, in the future. But for the final thoughts of what I have for this entire thing, I actually loved it. I love the whole concept of the fact that they were able to go back in time because of a mysterious object, and they were seemingly just stuck in there, and that we don't really know what happens to them by the end. I mean, it did seem a little weird how Mike was getting a little too happy about it, but obviously he kind of realized that there was no way out, and that kind of stopped that whole situation. But I really enjoyed the story. It was really well done. It does leave me wanting to read more, so maybe in my pastime I'll read the prequel and the sequel, and we'll just take it from there. But that's all I have for now. So without any further ado, hope you guys enjoy this video, the previous video, and more future videos to come. And without further ado, I hope you guys have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night. Don't forget to stay spooky. All right, peace out.